One company owns Brooks Brothers, Eddie Bauer, Champion, and Billabong. It doesn't make a single garment. Not one factory, not one seamstress, not one quality inspector on a single production line. It buys the name off a company that already died, licenses that logo to whoever pays for it, and lets somebody else stamp it onto whatever they were already producing. The clothes change completely. The label never does. 6 men's brands your father trusted have been hollowed out this exact way, and unless you know what to check, you'll keep paying heritage prices for something that shares nothing with the original but a font on a tag. Here's what makes this so hard to spot. Nobody announces it. No press release goes out saying the tailoring moved overseas, the fabric weight dropped by 1/3, and the stitch count got cut. The storefront looks the same, the logo looks the same, the marketing photos still show a lighthouse or a mountain, and you find out the truth when a shoulder seam unravels after 4 months. By the end of this, you'll know exactly which names to be careful with, and the one check that exposes the whole thing in seconds. Tell me in the comments which brand you've personally noticed slipping. I want to see if it made this list. Number 6. Nautica. Start with a brand that once meant something specific, and now means almost nothing. Nautica launched in the early 80s with a genuinely tight identity. Sailing-inspired outerwear built for weather, heavy jackets with real construction, gear that looked like it belonged near actual water rather than in a photograph of it. For a stretch, it was one of the strongest American sportswear names in the world. Then came the ownership carousel. The brand changed hands, moved to corporate portfolios, and got carved into licensing deals across categories, and its identity dissolved into whatever a licensee could manufacture cheaply and stack in an outlet mall. That's the quiet part of licensing nobody explains. A licensee isn't trying to honor a legacy. It's trying to hit a wholesale price and a margin, and everything else is negotiable. The logo still says Nautica. The jacket in your hands is a fraction of the garment that name once guaranteed. Lighter, thinner, built to a price point instead of a standard. Compare an early 90s piece to a current one and the difference is in your fingers before it's in your head. There's a simple way to see it for yourself. Find an old Nautica jacket on a resale site, look at the listed materials, then compare that to a current one on the brand's own website. The fabric content tells the story without anyone having to argue about it. The name survived the company that earned it. But the next brand's decline is far more documented, and it happened in plain sight. Number 5. Jose. A bank. Here's a brand that killed itself with math. Jose. A bank. Bank was founded in 1905 and spent the better part of a century building a reputation for office attire that working men could actually trust, decent suiting at fair prices, the kind of place a father took his son before a first job interview. Then it became famous for something else entirely. The buy one get 3 free suit promotion ran so relentlessly that it stopped being a sale and became the brand's whole personality. Think for a second about what that pricing actually requires. A suit sold 4 for 1 cannot contain the same wool, the same canvassing, or the same construction as a suit sold once at full price. The math simply doesn't allow it. Shoppers noticed exactly what you'd expect. Fused fronts instead of proper canvassing, thinner cloth that wrinkled and held creases badly, tailoring that went from real to token. The permanent discount wasn't generosity. It was a confession about what was inside the jacket. And when the discount never ends, the original price was never real to begin with. It was an anchor, set high on purpose so the markdown would feel like a victory. Men walked out with 4 suits and the belief that they'd beaten the system, when the system had been designed around exactly that feeling. If you own one of those suits, check the chest, press the fabric between your fingers and see whether it feels like 2 layers glued together or like cloth with structure inside it. Fusing is what a 4 for 1 price buys you. The next name on this list is the one that broke the most hearts, and the facts behind it are genuinely brutal. Number 4. Eddie Bauer. This one hurts, because Eddie Bauer earned its reputation the hardest way possible. The founder patented the first quilted goose-down jacket in America back in 1940. Gear so effective it was credited with keeping people alive in serious cold. In 1963, the company outfitted the first American expedition to summit Mount Everest. That's not marketing copy, that's the actual history. And for decades, the name carried it. Then the ownership changes began. Bauer sold to his partner in 1968. The company went to General Mills in 1971, then to Spiegel in 1988, which itself went bankrupt in 2003. Eddie Bauer emerged, filed bankruptcy in 2003. Eddie Bauer emerged, filed bankruptcy again in 2009, and was sold once more. Eventually, the brand and the physical stores were split apart entirely and handed to two separate holding companies, which is the corporate equivalent of separating a body from its skeleton. Along the way, production drifted from American, English, and Hong Kong factories toward whoever could produce cheapest. Retail analysts have publicly pointed to deteriorating quality as a core reason the brand lost ground to competitors like Arc'teryx and Fjällräven, which is a damning thing to say about an outdoor company whose products are judged by whether they perform in bad weather. In February of this year, Eddie Bauer filed Chapter 11 again, with roughly 200 stores set to close. There's something particularly bleak about it too. The brand recently tried to revive its first Ascent line, the genuinely serious outdoor gear, which is effectively an admission that the main line had drifted far from what made the name worth anything. A mountaineering legend became a logo for sale. 3 bankruptcies, and the name still hangs on racks and malls. Which brings us to a brand that made the exact same move, but did it while everyone was watching. Quick pause. If this is already making you rethink what's hanging in your closet, tap subscribe, because the top 3 are the biggest names of all, and the one at number 1 dressed 40 American presidents. Number 3, Champion spent most of a century as the genuine article. Heavyweight cotton. That famous reverse weave construction engineered so sweatshirts wouldn't shrink vertically. Gear that college athletic departments actually ordered because it survived seasons of abuse. If you've ever handled a vintage reverse weave, you know the weight. It feels closer to upholstery than clothing. Then the brand got swept into the same licensing machine as the rest of this list. Today, Champion exists at several completely different quality tiers, all wearing one identical script logo. There's a premium line, there's a mass market line, and there's whatever ends up in a discount aisle, and the label gives you almost no way to tell them apart at a glance. That vintage sweatshirt your uncle still wears and the piece hanging in a clearance bin carry the same logo and share almost nothing else. One was built to survive a decade of practices in bad weather. The other is built to survive the return window. The tell is fabric weight, so pick it up and feel whether it has any substance at all, because the good stuff announces itself immediately. Same logo, 2 entirely different products, and only one of them is being honest about what it is. The frustrating part for a shopper is that both are sold as Champion, at prices that don't always reflect which tier you're getting. Yet the next brand's collapse took something even harder to replace. Number 2. Woolrich and the American mill brands. Woolrich ran America's oldest continuously operating woolen mill, weaving its own cloth on its own looms in Pennsylvania for well over a century and a half. That's the part that mattered. When a company controls the fabric from raw wool through to the finished coat, it controls quality at every step, and you can feel that control in the weight, the hand, and the way the garment ages. That mill closed. The brand continues, the name still sells jackets, but the thing that justified the price is simply gone. The wool now comes from wherever it's cheapest to source, made by whoever wins the contract, and the label still trades on the story of a mill that no longer runs. This is the pattern across an entire generation of American heritage labels. The mill dies, and the marketing survives it, sometimes by decades. Pendleton, Filson, and a handful of others fought to keep real production alive, but plenty of names on department store racks are selling a heritage story with nothing behind it. There's a practical lesson buried in this one. If a heritage brand still tells you exactly where its fabric is milled and where the garment is sewn, that's usually a sign the substance is still there. If the website talks only about legacy, adventure, and heritage without naming a single mill or factory, that silence is the answer. When a brand stops making its own cloth, it stops being a maker and starts being a licensor. And that leaves the most famous casualty of all, the one that genuinely changes how you see this whole business. Number 1. Brooks Brothers. Here's the one that stings the most. Brooks Brothers was founded in 1818. It dressed 40 American presidents across 2 centuries. It made the coat Abraham Lincoln was wearing the night he was shot. For that entire run, the name meant one specific thing: quality American tailoring at a price that honestly reflected it. And generations of men bought it precisely because they never had to think about whether it was good. Then it filed for bankruptcy in 2020 and was bought by a licensing group that manufactures nothing whatsoever. Not a factory, not a mill, not a single production line. The business model is to own names and rent them out. The brand now operates at multiple quality tiers under one identical label, and the difference is close to invisible on the hanger. So here's the check that exposes it. Flip a shirt inside out and look at the shoulder seam where the sleeve joins the body. On the genuine article, that stitching is tight, straight, and clean, with a high stitch count and no loose threads. On the licensed version, it can look tangled and rushed, the work of someone paid by volume rather than by quality. You will not learn which one you bought from the price tag or the storefront. You learn it from the inside of the garment, or you learn it when it fails. And then there's the detail that sounds invented but sits in public filings and was covered by Bloomberg and Retail Dive. The company that operates Brooks Brothers stores today is partly owned by the same operation behind fast fashion sold for a few dollars a piece online. The brand that dressed Lincoln now shares a corporate parent with $4 polyester dresses. Nobody hid that, it's simply on the record. And once you know it, the price on a Brooks Brothers tag reads very differently. None of which means every piece with that label is bad. Some of it is still genuinely well made. The problem is that the label has stopped functioning as a guarantee, and a 200-year-old name that no longer guarantees anything is worth far less than what it costs. There's one thing that protects you from every brand on this list, and from the next batch that goes the same way, because more of them will. It costs nothing. It takes about 2 seconds in a store, and it instantly tells you whether you're holding a genuine garment or a famous logo stamped onto something cheap. Almost nobody does it, which is exactly why this business model keeps working so well. I break that exact check down in the next video, so watch it before you spend another $1 on a heritage name. It's on your screen right now.